Hello, welcome to the conversation in New Central Television. I am Gbenga Aborowa. This is the program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent.
And I am Rita Omodia. Now, today for the conversation, the presidential candidate of Nigeria's All Progressives Congress continues to dominate discussions across the country after every public appearance. His performance at the Chatham House is the latest in a series of controversial speeches.
Also, on the conversation today, the convicted killer of South African anti-apartheid leader Chris Hani has been released from prison. We'll discuss that and the recent call by South African Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu asking President Cyril Ramaphosa to resign following the Palapala Dam scandal.
I mean, that scandal is going to go on and people are still calling for the resignation. A lot of opposition for Cyril Ramaphosa, I must say.
Yes, and Ramaphosa is also standing strong, saying, you know, the technicalities in that report, they're loopholes. So he's taking it to the courts. He's fighting back. But I'm sure for time, you thought he was going to throw in the towel.
I actually thought so. I even thought that the ANC would also say, okay, why not step aside and allow proper investigations to continue?
So the ANC's National Working Committee, and I'm sure he's consulted people widely and has definitely thought that, look, there's a chance here for me. So he's fighting the good or bad fight, depending on the side of the debate.
Depending on the side. And of course, for Chris Hani, we still have conversations on him. I mean, earlier on, we dealt with conversations on him being released on parole. And Janice Wallace, rather. Let me not bring back the dead. Yeah. But anyways, he has finally been released on parole. But, you know, there was one of our guests who said, I don't know his safety after being released.
Yes, so I think he's in the hands of the South African Correctional Facilities, and I'm sure when we speak to our guests, they'll give us more details on that without necessarily revealing his address. Now, let's switch gears to our first topic of today. Despite several criticisms on the recent engagement of the presidential candidate of the Nigeria's ruling All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, at the Chatham House in London, his party has described the outing as a good preview of what Nigerians should expect from his presidency come 2023. The president had delegated questions directed at him during an interactive session, saying it was an expression of his belief in teamwork, while many Nigerians regarded this as an abdication of duty. The spokesperson of the APC Northwest Presidential Council, Mohammed Molash, in a statement said it was indeed an opportunity for Tinubu to showcase his leadership skills to the international community.
According to Molash, Tinubu's actions also revealed his vision for Nigeria, his enviable track records, and his ability to identify talents and delegate responsibilities to them. The party insisted that the outing also showed that he was the most prepared presidential candidate in Nigeria. Molash stressed that the secret behind Tinubu's success could be found in his ability to assemble a good team and assign each of them a task that must be accomplished. Let's have a recap of this.
Let me once demonstrate here. One of those philosophers I wanted doctrine that I believe firmly in is teamship, unbreakable team. To demonstrate that, I will choose the first question, assign it to Dele Alake.
Okay.
And the second question, assign to Nasiru El-Rufai. And third question, assigned to Ben Ayade.
That was the presidential candidate of Nigeria's ruling All Progressives Congress, and that was after the public lecture that went on. Then there was an interactive session with people there. And of course, joining us to discuss all this, we have Adeola Samuel, political analyst and human rights advocate from Lagos, Nigeria. We also have Lukman Owolabi, is a political analyst, and Biodun, a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll begin with you, Adeola. Now, aside this one-on-one interactive session, we had, first of all, a presidential candidate lecture by the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, which is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, for you, I know there are lots of criticisms for it, but your overall assessment of the presidential candidate's lecture, where he discussed on security, economy, and other things by the candidates there, what was your assessment of it?
Well, my assessment of that style that he employed is the fact that they always bring out sensationalism out of seriousness. The fact remains that there is a difference between what we call abdication of duty and delegation of authority. When something is meant for you to be done, and decided to give it to another person to do, it's not delegation, it's abdication. You can only delegate authority that you have. You cannot abdicate your duty, that which is supposed to be your primary reason why you are asking to be elected. For example, I've heard so much about the defense from the Baptists. I'm talking about the people that are supporting Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, using the video of President Biden of America to defend the fact that Biden was also delegating questions to the people around him, and I was able to correct them that we should stop all the shenanigans and be comparing mangoes with apple. Biden came to London with his cabinet member, and the question that were asked was related to each and a cabinet member already in office that are running their offices with him. And because he cannot be jack of all trades, even though the buck stop at his table, for as long as the people that are in charge of that offices are already there, he needs to, let them answer for themselves so that they can have comprehensive and understanding of what the question is all about. But this is a different case entirely. This man is asking for our vote to become our president.
Sorry, Adeola, sorry to cut you short there, Adeola. Now, before we get to the part where he delegated duties, there was about 22 minutes lecture that Bola Ahmed Tinubu did, and I'm sure you paid close attention to it. So I want us to emphasize on that first before we go to the second part where there was an interactive session. You listened to when he talked about security and economy. What were your thoughts on this?
Whatever he said there is not new. Whatever he said there has been the attitude that has been portrayed everywhere with, gumptions, damning the consequences, when it relates to his personal life, when it relates to his competency, when it comes to his health status, as well as his origin. So as far as I'm concerned, he's not saying anything new. The only thing I find so, debilitating is by him neglecting the local media and decided to go and attend to the foreign media. But whatever he said there is nothing that he said that we have not heard before.
Okay, thank you, Adeola. I'd like to bring in Mr. Biodun Sowunmi, who's in the studio, is in the premises in studio with us here. Welcome to the conversation, Mr. Sowunmi.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, in defense of the performance of the candidate of the ruling All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the members of the APC and its supporters said, what he did at Chatham House was ingenious and novel. Did you find anything wrong with the delegation of duties to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Gbenga and others to answer questions that were posed to him via proxy?
Yeah, to start with, Tinubu gave a 28-minute speech addressing issues of national concerns relating to national security, to the economy, to youth employment, and so many other important issues, which I think commentators need to focus on, because trying to look at what he didn't do, what he did, or what people are saying, Baptist responses and all that, are not really addressing the issues. We should be interested exactly in the policies, which Tinubu intends to implement, or any other presidential candidate for that matter. It's not just about Tinubu. rather than trying to, pigeonhole people into one thing or the other. Now, when you look at his impressive, what he actually impressed me in that speech is the link, how Tinubu is able to bring back, the link between the domestic policy and the foreign policy, which we used to do in Nigeria, but for over so many years now, we've actually abandoned that. We have not been able to sync our domestic policies, with our foreign policy. He's saying, well, he's going to come out, talk about that, do things about that, make sure that happens in reality. He also pulled out another angle to it, which is the aspect of national security and individual security. That is the economic security of Nigerians and national security, with a view to being able to address, the challenges, security challenges we are facing in the country. That is quite very, very important. We can't ignore that, but to actually, look at what does it mean. We need to be asking him to give us more details. How do you intend to do that? So that at least we are beginning to address our issues rather than addressing things that are less important. When you go to the aspect of delegation, what I see is that it's quite unusual in Chatham House. I agree. So also in National Endowment for Democracy in America. That style is quite unusual, but there's nothing illegal about it. You have a situation where Tinubu's management style, which everyone knows in Nigeria, is he headhunts people, put them, put the right cap on who it fits and get them to do the job and coordinate and achieve results. That has always been his style. So his management style is quite very clear to everybody from day one. So what he chose to do, which he actually confessed himself, is to come online, come to Chatham House, and made it very, very clear that, look, I don't know it all. I believe in shared governance, and no one else knows it all. And he is quite correct on that. Nobody is a jack of all trades. You end up becoming master of none. But he is a talent hunter.
But
he
Mr.
has a broad understanding of
nobody is saying that the example that APC supporters used to, comparing apples and oranges when they brought out a video of President Biden talking to the head of the United States response team to coronavirus, Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci is a scientist. He was very technical, and Joe Biden said, you know what, I'll just let him speak because this is his forte. But the buck stops at Mr. Tinubu's table. If he emerges victorious next year, he's going to be commander-in-chief. At least nobody is saying you should go into details, but you should be able to highlight certain areas of your program because you're going to be commander-in-chief, and a lot of people thought it was quite unusual and quite frankly disrespectful to, answer questions via proxy, because you don't sit for examinations and say, oh, I choose the brightest students in my class to answer.
Yes, you are correct. When that's what some people said, I actually watched the video and listened to those, read all the comparisons and all that, the pros and cons. But for me, that is not even the issue at all. The issue of blood oil, it's more important. There are more germane issues. Rather than us moving from the sublime to the ridiculous, there are more germane issues. What did he meant, by blood oil? Has anybody bothered to probe into that? And I can tell you, that was something which was taken, from the blood diamond. You remember the blood diamond of, I think it's Sierra Leone. And how Tinubu managed to look into that and say, look, hang on a minute, we can apply this solution to solve part of our economic problems. One of the major problems is oil theft. And Tinubu now learned from what the effective action and collaboration of the international community, to stop blood diamond, by making sure that they target, the disposal source in a way that if there are no consumers, then nobody will steal diamond again. And exactly that is what he meant by talking about blood oil. That is, he will target where it's not only about stealing the oil from Nigeria that he will deal with, he will target the market for it at the international level through international collaboration. Of course, that is very, very significant. It's even more important than comparing whether Joe Biden's style of governance or Tinubu style of governance. No, those are the real policy issues which we should be talking about. In any case, I am a student of shared governance because I probably, maybe because of my background, I left UK as a director. And I know that in public service, you hardly can get employed if, one, you are not a team player, two, you cannot delegate tasks. There are very crucial issues which we do look at for in the public sector in United Kingdom, and it's exactly the same thing in the politics of United Kingdom. I know sufficient enough about that. So, and Tinubu choosing UK to go and play up the issue of teamship, or what I would call shared governance, for me is very significant. It's strategic, because he knows it will appeal.
I'd like to bring Lukman into all this. Just hold on that thought there, because we're still going to come deeper into this. And I'll bring Lukman into all this. Now, we look at deeply the policies, and while Biodun has clearly highlighted the display of teamship of the governorship of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, I know you also listened to what he gave. Now, in your own view, did he display a vast knowledge of issues affecting the country? Now, bearing in mind that Tinubu has not had a physical interview or debate with the Nigerian media. So this is the first time we're seeing one-on-one apart from manifestos and rallies. So did he display a vast knowledge of issues affecting Nigeria, which he plans to govern, if elected?
Oh, you see, when a short man begins to cast a long shadow, you know that the sun is about to set. When we start hearing things like this, within our political space, sometimes we are given to revisionism. What I can say regarding Tinubu and his style of governance, his approach to issues, is that this is someone who knows his onions. This is someone who is very profound. This is someone who is definitive, is determined, is fearless, and is a visionary who plays to his strengths. That is one thing many people don't know about him, or they don't appreciate about him. He knows his strengths and weaknesses. And so he plays to his strength. He's not your kind of debater. He's not an Oshibajo. He's not an orator. He knows that. But he knows his onions. He knows what he wants to do. And he knows that to do that, he needs a team. And he will get anybody that can assist him in achieving his aims and objectives. That is one thing about Tinubu. He's not going to come out to debate with you, in terms of oratory, prowess, and no, he's not going to do that because that is not his strength. I mean, how many times have you witnessed him in debates since 1999 when he became governor? It's not that kind of person, and we know that. So he plays to his strength. So for people trying to talk about, it's not about whether he knows the issues or not. He definitely knows the issues, and is someone who will gather people around and will say, let us debate it. And that was his style, even while as governor in Lagos State. He will sit down and debate issues with his team. And sometimes they can defeat him. And he says it all the time. And he will warn them and say, you defeated me now, I'll catch you next time. And that's his style. So it's not going to change now. It's not, I was wondering when I saw him, as if I knew something like that was going to happen at the Chatham house. I knew when it comes to questions and answers, he probably would, give you a broad outline of what he wants to do. But because he has already released the manifesto, I know that he probably will not want to deviate from what is inside the manifesto. Of course, he has not read everything in the manifesto. He probably has an idea or a broad outline of what is there in the manifesto. He knows the salient issues there, the salient points, but he will not, be there to articulate that position in a way that everybody will start clapping up. It's not
Lukman, if you have a potential commander-in-chief that is not such an effective communicator, but like you said, will get the job done and get the best of team. How then do you, because if you look at the Nigerian political space, there's a huge trust deficit between the people and the governed and the people. So how do you then market your ideas to them? How do you make them trust you if they can assess you via media interviews or debate, and all you have to do is just believe that this man means well for us? I believe Nigerians deserve better than that.
Or how does he satisfy the yearnings of the people, because they want to hear from him?
That's a valid point you have made. But Tinubu to us is not new. Tinubu has been governor for 2 years, has been senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria here. So we are not talking about the greenhorn here. We are talking about someone who is a trailblazer, someone who has performed, in office. This is someone who has when we didn't have traffic lights in Nigeria. We had traffic lights in the 1940s to the 1960s in Nigeria, and then by the late 80s, we never had traffic lights. Everything had gone moribund. He was the one that introduced traffic lights into Nigeria, back into Nigeria in the year 2001. When we were talking about shoreline protection of the Bar Beach in Lagos, when the federal government was spending over 4 billion naira annually just to maintain the Bar Beach, it was the one that brought out the shoreline protection policy there. The federal government did not accede to it in the first place, but eventually in 2005, they acceded to it. And then the shoreline protection, we are no longer in danger of being submerged by the Atlantic Ocean. Instead, we now have a brand new city that is almost twice the size of Victoria Island there. So if he didn't do that, who would have done that? That's someone who blazed the trail in the creation of local governments in Nigeria. And most of the states now have LCDs. This is someone who created the Office of the Public Defender in Nigeria, that all states within the 6 geopolitical zones have come to copy, and they are now replicating same in the states of the Federation. We are talking of a trailblazer. We're not talking of a greenhorn here. The thing is, he has engaged in town hall meetings all over the country. He has spoken at rallies. We know his policy direction. We know where he's headed. We know his capacity. We know his will. We know about his courage. We know what he can do. So he has very little to talk about.
Okay. I'm happy you brought about the issue of Lagos State, but I also want to bring it up that if he becomes the president, it's not just Lagos State he'll be ruling, because you mentioned he was a governor and senator. He's going to be ruling 36 states of the Federation, but I'm going to come to Biodun on all this. Now, you talked earlier about him going all the way to the Chatham House, the United Kingdom, for interviews. Now, there were questions on diaspora voting in the quest for democratic dispensation. So when we see presidential candidates going to the United Kingdom, of what end and essence is this when the people here are still waiting to hear from him?
Okay.
Sorry, I'd like Jordan to answer this, please.
See. Oh, okay.
Yeah. You see, there are 2 legs to it. The first one is the Nigerian leg. Why is Tinubu, not honoring some press invitation? And I will say clearly to you now that why are people making issue out of it? One, TVC, with relationship to Tinubu, invited other presidential aspirants. I know they invited Obi and Atiku, and they did not accept the invitation. End of matter. No issue at all. And Arise TV has been inviting Tinubu and channels. And Tinubu also said, no, I am not going there. It's like asking it's like going for a dinner, in the house of your enemy. You would never feel comfortable, particularly with Arise TV taking an open position up to the point of editorializing, up to the point of anchors being guests, and taking strong views, strong positions against him. So he has the right to say, look, I'm not going to go to this. And in any case, how do we used to do it in the past? And when did we come to this arrangement where individual TV stations will not be inviting individual candidates? What we used to have in Nigeria is the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, BON, is responsible for organizing debates, for presidential candidates. This has been going on for some years. And BON will organize a intermediate agency debate panel to handle it, so that everybody will have confidence in it. It will not be skewed against one candidate or the other. The trust issue will be addressed, and that is still yet to happen. What we've seen is 1 or 2 TV stations pulled out to say, look, we are not going to be part of this. We want to do our own. And that is why we're in this situation. It is not Tinubu's fault at all. There must be a neutral media agency to handle it. And Bon has been doing that. So why are we doing something different now? Now, in relation to going to UK, I will tell you the importance of UK. The highest concentration of Nigerians in terms of density, anywhere in the world outside Nigeria is just 4 kilometers away from Chatham House, and that is Camberwell/Peckham. That is where you have the highest concentration of Nigerians. Nigerians in diaspora have been clamoring to have the right to vote. They have been clamoring to have a say in the affairs of this country. And it is just right that while we are dealing with issues at home about how to work out our technology in a way to enable them to be able to vote, after all, they are contributing over $30 billion a year to our GDP, and in terms of foreign remittances. While we are trying to do that, there is nothing wrong, and I think it is very important for Nigerians outside the country to be engaged. No place is better outside Nigeria than London. And the venue is just 4 kilometers away, from where the highest concentrations of Nigerians are. It's a different matter if Tinubu goes to Russia or goes to Australia. You begin to ask yourself, what is the significance of that? What is the importance of that? But in terms of UK, that is very significant.
Thank you, Biodun. I'd like to bring in Lukman to this conversation. Now, Lukman, 2 questions here. Number one, campaign season has been on for quite a while now, so we've seen a series of debates and, of course, manifestos and rallies. Are you satisfied with the level of debate, the quality of the conversation we're having as we inch towards the elections? And my second question is this. INEC has raised concerns over the issue of vote buying because a lot of politicians have monetized the high levels of poverty in the country, and they're concerned that, politicians that really don't have much to offer the people are just going to go out there and they will go to the highest bidder. So what's your response to these questions, Lukman Owolabi?
Oh, I didn't even know the question was addressed to me anyway. But I had the first one. I think you were talking about the level of engagement within the political system. And I believe that, the advantage we have in this political season is that all the front runners in this election are known to us. So there's no one that can say he's going to pull a rabbit from the hat, and we won't question that person. So we already know those who are in front, who are front runners, and we know what they stand for. And we have seen them before in governance, so we can gauge. So the thing is, it's either you are for or against. That is all. So anybody can choose whoever they like within the front runners and vote for them. So regarding the preparation of INEC, I think that's the second question you asked.
No, vote buying, because the candidate in one of the elections in the past, one of the leading candidates, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a bullion van was seen driving into his premises, and INEC has complained about incidents of vote buying, that it would affect the quality of our democracy, because it's just going to be, it will go to the highest bidder. What's your take on that?
Oh, I believe that INEC has been doing everything possible to make sure that vote buying is, stopped completely or reduced to the barest minimum. And we have seen within the election cycles what they have done. And I think they are on the right path regarding that. And then the redesigning of the Naira and then the fallout of it now is also helping us to checkmate those who have that mind that they are going to use cash, to settle things like this. The thing is, if you allow people as an institution, if you don't block all your loopholes, people will still do whatever they can. But now that INEC has said, look, they know, because they already know, unless you want to pay cash to people or buy votes in advance And when they get to the polling booth, the people will do whatever they want to do. So now that INEC has said you cannot even take your phone to the polling booth, so that because they know that people have been taking pictures of, the ballot just to convince those who are going to pay them that they voted for a particular party. INEC has now banned the use of a phone near the booth. So we want to see how they want to buy that vote. I believe that many people will waste their money this time around because INEC has done everything to ensure that vote buying is reduced to the barest minimum, if not stopped completely.
Okay, thank you so much, Lukman. I'd like to bring in Adeola into all of this. And you talked about the election cycle while we're looking at INEC preparedness for the election and, of course, vote buying, which has unfortunately been a major characteristic of Nigerian elections and even elections in Africa. Now, Tinubu mentioned that the fact that the current election will take place on the backdrop of unhindered 25 years of democratic process and appraised the electoral process under President Muhammadu Buhari for its credible improvement. Now, Adeola, would you support or oppose this assertion that, for the past 25 years and even as President Muhammadu Buhari has come into power since 2015, that the electoral process has been quite smooth and devoid of corruption, vote buying, and all of that?
Well, all I can say precisely is that as much as INEC are trying to evolve new innovation into the preparations and electioneering process, the people that are seeking for votes are not going along with them. You see, all these things are not supposed to be something we should be discussing. Actually, elections in Nigeria are supposed to be seamless if the purpose of people seeking office is to come and serve. You must know that it is the people that will let you serve them, not you forcing yourself. And forcing yourself on people, it don't start from election, rigging. It started from the way you choose the people that will represent you. When you consider how some of the presidential candidates emerge, you already know what they will do in the general election because it is not new to them. One of your colleagues just mentioned the issue of bullion vans. You see, in my radio program yesterday or on Wednesday, we discussed this matter, and I was able to say that even Emefiele will be one of those people that will take the money to the house of any of the presidential candidates, especially one that we know that is highly influential and that controls many, shares in banks. Because the policy is to stop the people from collecting money for vote or for the politicians to have money to distribute for people for vote buying. But I can tell you that policy will only work on the poor people.
So, in other words, this new policy which the Senate has kicked against, this 100,000 naira withdrawal, Adeola, while you're talking about policies that are affecting the people rather than stopping vote buying, recently the CBN brought about the policy of 100,000 naira limit for withdrawal, which the Senate has kicked against. Of course, all this, according to the party and a lot of people, is to end vote buying. Do you think it will still have an adverse effect on the public?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's what exactly what I am saying. That one of the reasons why they said this thing the policy was issued out was because to cut the politician from having money to pay for vote buying. But I said, unfortunately, that the people that they are trying to curb are not to be affected. They are not. Like I said, Emefiele will be one of those people that will bring money to the house of those people. Bankers, managers will take money to the highest contributor to their bank branch. So at the end of the day, where are we? At the end of the day, has it been achieved? But the poor people will be the thing. What I am saying in essence is that politicians that are ready to serve, politicians that claim to be loved by the people, politician that is accepted to the majority need not to use money to buy vote. I am an accredited observer for many years for INEC. In Osun State, my team arrested with the police that we are going about more than 9 people buying votes. And they mentioned their party, they mentioned who sent them or who gave them those money. So it is not a question of just setting up policy to curb certain things. It's supposed to be an idea, a character that the people that are seeking for people's vote should imbibe. If people want me, if I'm popular, let me go out there and prove myself. Not that you have to, anything that you have, tainted in line with desecration can no longer bring about a constructive end. So that is the area where we are looking at it. That the policy will copy, I can tell you it's not going to copy, because the politician high up there will not be affected by the policy.
Thank you, Adeola. I'd like to bring in Biodun Sowunmi before we wrap up this conversation. Now, Biodun Sowunmi, the focus of today was the performance of the All Progressive Congress candidate at Chatham House, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was also instrumental to the current government assumption of powers in Abuja. He played a very pivotal role in the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari as a party leader. Now, a lot of Nigerians have said, looking at the past record, the 7 years of the Buhari administration, that the economy is in the doldrums, security is at an almost all-time low, and that the APC, the vehicle in which he's using to seek power, might be the biggest Achilles heel for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. How do you respond to this? And can he divorce himself from the performance of this administration?
Yes. Honestly speaking, many people have actually asked the same question time and time again. When you look at the issue of Tinubu and Buhari, no doubt Tinubu is one of those who, he was not the only one, but one of those who, supported Buhari to get into office. And he actually made so much show of that recently. So nobody can deny that. But the fact is, you can look for a job for somebody, you don't do the job for them. But when you are to now look at Buhari's administration's performance, I am one of those who previously used to be very, very critical until when I took a sober reflection and then consider the facts, and then, take away emotions. Nobody can deny the fact that Buhari has achieved some things. Yes, he has not done everything perfectly well. Let me give you a good example.
But they promised a lot. I mean, the campaign, the dollar, they told us that the PDP government was this and that. But if you look at all those promises, 7 years down the line, line for line, things are quite worse.
I will address it. Political promises are like budget estimates. There are a lot of other factors that will come into it, whether it will happen, it won't happen. No doubt many people are poor, no doubt poverty is on the increase in the country, but not extreme poverty. That is one important thing which we need to understand. There is extreme poverty, there is poverty. So there are two different things. Now, when you look at the situations, Buhari's government itself is quite very unfortunate. We are just coming out of the devastation of COVID-19, and now you have the Ukraine war with all its problems. Go and talk to farmers. I have a farm and I know, go and talk to farmers. Food will be more expensive next year. The reason is because the first planting season, we didn't have rain. The moment the rain came, everybody started planting in April, and suddenly the rain ceased. Out of 51 acres, I only managed to have maybe 3.5 bags of grains. Again, we've done the second planting season. Again, there's no rain. In October. Again, there's no rain. So it's quite clear that food will be more expensive next year. That is nature. You also have the issue of steel, iron and steel. We get that from Ukraine. The cost of iron and steel have actually doubled currently. These are external factors which are affecting, us at home. No doubt you can't strictly blame Buhari for that. But when you actually sit back and take a look at what he has done, look at the road construction. Railway is now running between Lagos and Ibadan. We didn't used to have that. People should not forget that. And we now have railway running. We have Lagos-Ibadan expressway being completed. We now have a second Niger bridge across River Niger, from Asabahen to Onitsha. There are quite some things which have been achieved. I am sure that all of us won't agree that Buhari totally failed. No, he has not totally failed.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mr. Biodun Sowunmi. We're fast pressed for time. I really wish we could go on. I'd like to say thank you to the gentlemen that joined us on the conversation today, Adeola Samuel Lukman, Owolabi, and also Biodun Sowunmi with us here in the studio. Thank you very much for your time and contribution.
Thank you.
You're watching The Conversation in News Central Television. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll switch gears to South Africa, where the killer of anti-apartheid hero Chris Hani, Janice Wallace, has been released on parole. We'll look at details of this and more when we return.